Hey everybody, Tekking101 here. And in today's video, it's very late at night so I have to whisper, we are going to be discussing Kenpachi Zaraki's Bankai. I just remembered, I'm the only person in this house right now, so I don't know why I'm whispering. Kenpachi Zaraki's Bankai! Bitches! It's the only Bankai in the entire Gotei 13 where you can't just say Bankai. You have to add a bit. There has to be some profanity in the title. You have to say motherfucking Bankai or just fucking Bankai, or you have to have a bitch afterwards. You have to add something to really lay the sentence enhancer on enough to really so you can understand the weight of what we're talking about here. Now, I know I said that in one of the previous Bankai videos that I was gonna hold off on doing a Kenpachi Zaraki Bankai video, because I felt like when we found out about it, we didn't really get a lot of information on what it was. We don't even know the name of it. So I figured, yeah, there's not enough information for me to go off of here. I'm not even going to bother. I'll wait until Kubo explains it all. That's probably going to take a long-ass time, though. So I decided to do this now. No, but seriously, with everything that's going on right now, Ichigo's in the middle of a fight, and, Isshin and Ryukin showed up. I mean, I know the fight with Gerard's still going on, but it's just like, we have no idea when it's going to get to that point. It could be in 10 chapters, or 20 chapters, or 30 chapters, or he might not even bring it up again. I mean, it's Kubo we're talking about here. He might just be like, yeah, you guys can figure it out yourself. My fans are smart. You can kind of piece it together how it's going to go. And I have a pretty decent idea of how it works. It would just be nice to know the name of it, is all. But yeah, so Kenpachi Zaraki's Bankai was revealed in chapter 669. It was hinted at in chapter 668. A lot of fans thought for years that he was going to get a Bankai. I was not one of them. I didn't think he was going to go down that route. I had a firm belief he was going to learn his Shikai, or the true form of his Shikai, or the name of his Zanpakuto in the final arc, but I felt that would be rather jarring to get a Shikai and a Bankai during the same arc, but hey, that's what happened. So his Bankai transforms him not just physically, not just the sword also, but also his body and his mental capacity as well. Now, Kenpachi wasn't always, one for really, tactical planning when attacking his opponent. He wasn't really one to even, he's like, all right, he's going to do that, so I better do that. He was mostly just based on instinct from what, all the previous battle experience he's had. But his Bankai gets rid of all that, to the point where you wonder if he's even, consciously aware he's in his Bankai, So, basically, the physical changes we're talking about here is he gets red skin and these markings all over his body, like these tattoos that appear. His eyes get whited out, his teeth become a little bit more pronounced, and he gets horns coming out of his head, which makes Kenpachi look resembling very close to a devil or a Kishin in Japanese mythology. Or an Oni, I guess. Although Onis are supposed to be like demons. Kishin is like the devil. So I think that's kind of what Kubo's going for here. And he becomes basically a berserker rage monster while in this form. Apparently he does have an idea on who's an ally and who's a enemy, because he didn't seem to go after anybody but Gerard, and Gerard was the enemy here. But I have I have a kind of an idea for what that comes from there. But in terms of his mental capacity, he doesn't speak. He doesn't really think about anything. He just cuts things up even better than he did before when he was in Shikai. The sword itself, Nozarashi, shrinks down. It loses the end with the tassel, with the thing hanging off of it, and it has just kind of a broken sort of rugged edge to it, resembling sort of like a cleaver. And it's about half the size of Kenpachi's body, whereas Nozarashi was massive. Its Shikai was huge. It was just the handle alone was longer than Kenpachi's body, and he had to hold it in this really crazy fashion. The blade itself was twice as big as that, but this Nozarashi seems to be shrunk down considerably. Also seems to be compressing its power, its physical damage that it can dish out. Because even though it's a smaller blade, he was shown to cut up Gerard Valkyrie with this thing pretty much no problem. And we're talking a giant that's 20 stories tall. And Kenpachi can just slice him in half with this little tiny butcher's knife in comparison, basically. Basically cutting up a human being with a toothpick would be a good analogy there. But we see, and it's revealed that it's not just Kenpachi that's part of this. It's also his Zanpakuto spirit, Yachiru. Now, I already made a whole video about that. It's a theory video at the time, because we didn't really know where it was going, but it does touch upon a lot of the stuff that actually did end up happening in the series, so I would suggest you go check that out. I'll put it up here in an info card. But Yachiru is a huge part of this, because it's not just like, he goes into Bankai, and like I said, he just becomes kind of like a crazy monster with no real direction. Yachiru is kind of is the brains of the operation. She's the one that kind of steers Kenpachi in the right direction, and it also seems to be the one that kind of regulates his powers. So basically, Kenpachi, just goes around and cuts up anything that Yachiru directs him towards. Okay, and Yachiru in this form seems to be still riding on Kenpachi's shoulder, but nobody else can see her. She's a complete Zanpakuto spirit now. Like, nobody else can see her, and everyone's going to have that argument to the end of the time until it's revealed by Kubo. Like, wait a second, if she was a Zanpakuto spirit, how could she be seen by all the other members of the Gotei 13? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't, but, I like to think of Kenpachi in a lot of ways similar to Ichigo, whereas how Ichigo is the amalgamation of so many different things. He's kind of like the exception to the rule. Like, Quincy's can't be mixed with hollow powers. Yeah, but he's Ichigo, so it kind of slides. I like to think of Kenpachi like that. Like, he's really the exception to a lot of these rules, because how Kenpachi just works in general and his personality, it's so different from every other member of the Gotei 13, even different from a lot of the other members that were the captains of the 11th Division, with the exception of Yachiru, of course. It seems like, he can, like, break the laws of, like, how Zanpakutos are supposed to work and everything. And even his Bankai is radically different from every other Bankai that we've seen. I want you to take this into account. I really want you to think about this. His Bankai is the only one that actually changes a person's mental capacity. And even their physical appearance, for one. I can't think of another Bankai that really does that changes your skin color, gives you the markings, gives you horns. Ichigo's Mugetsu sort of did that, but once again, as I said, Ichigo's kind of the exception, not the rule. But every other Bankai either will summon some sort of big effect, or a creature, or just an increase in the effectiveness of the Shikai ability. It won't actually change the way you look and the way you think, except in like Toshiro gets ice wings. He gets like extra stuff added on, but it's not like his physical body is changing. It's just stuff that gets added on to him. Kenpachi gets a whole over makeover through his entire body, and a psychological makeover as well, and that's just something we've never seen before. That's really crazy. That's more similar to actually like an Arrancar's Resurrection, something similar to that, really. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a time in this series, it was right after the visors were introduced, it was a time in this series where a lot of people were having a theory that Kenpachi was going to end up being a visored or a hollow or something to that effect, just because the way he is, and like oh, this guy's a hollow, and then after that stopped being, we actually get to understand how you become a visored and everything, and Kenpachi doesn't really qualify, but he is a very bloodthirsty kind of guy, so I can see why people would make that comparison. So yeah, going a little bit more just on Yachiru really quick, there's probably the one moment that I want to discuss the most, and it's when she is like controlling Kenpachi, or at least directing him to fight, and after he gets sliced in half by Kenpachi and he pieces himself back together, he goes to rear up for another attack, kind of raises up Nozarashi, the blade, and his arm just rips apart, like right off of his body, and then he just collapses. And it's revealed by Yachiru that his body can't handle the flow of his power yet. So it's completely obvious to me that the full potential of Kenpachi's Bankai hasn't even been realized yet. Yachiru is kind of like regulating his power, just handing it off to him, and she gave off a little bit too much, and Kenpachi's body couldn't handle it and just collapses. Now, Kenpachi's whole deal is that just he has so much power crammed into his body, it's just like, it's infeasible that he would even be able to have that. That was a major crux. That's actually how he defeated Gremmy. That was a major crux in the battle with Gremmy, where Gremmy could imagine the level of power that Kenpachi had, but he couldn't figure out how the fuck that just Herculean amount of power could fit into Kenpachi's being. And that seems to become realized when Yachiru is helping. I keep hitting my mic. When Yachiru is helping out Kenpachi, and she's just like, yeah, your body's not ready to handle, like, that's too much of an overload, and his arm just gets ripped off by his own power, and it buckles underneath him, and he just collapses. And then after that, his Bankai seems to disengage after that, although he does seem to have the power still, because even though his, like, the red skin dissipated, he was still able to, like, you know, just grab onto Gerard's foot, which, once again, Gerard is like a 20-story tall giant at this point. Kenpachi was like, just pulls his fingers into the foot, and then Gerard just collapses. So the power still seems to linger, even though he doesn't have the reddish tint to his skin there. But yeah, I really hope we get to see a little bit of this again. You know, just maybe in the final battle with Gerard, like when they actually manage to finally take the guy down, he might go back into his Bankai again. At least we get the name of it. I hope we get the name. But I can understand essentially where Kubo's coming from. You have Yachiru as the Zanpakuto spirit, and Kenpachi is just sheer fighting force. So Yachiru has to kind of like compensate for that, and you know, it's like a two-person Bankai, which also makes it really different. I mean, I understand the Bankai, you know, the spirit is kind of like the whole point of getting a Bankai is you have to, you know, materialize and kind of force the Zanpakuto spirit into submission, and that's a big part of it, but it seems like Kenpachi and Yachiru have a more co-op sort of form of their Bankai, very similar to how Ichigo's is, because the whole point of a Zanpakuto is you shouldn't view a Zanpakuto as like, you know, I'm my own soul, and my Zanpakuto is my own soul, and it's just my friend fighting with me. Because, as we found out with Ichigo, it's the blade is me. You are your Zanpakuto. So it seems like the only other person that seems to be getting close to this, other than other Shinigami captains, is Kenpachi, because his relationship with Yachiru is it seems interpersonal than any other Zanpakuto in there. Because some of the Gotei 13 captains, you see, like, their Bankais might just, or their Zanpakuto spirits might be seen as just, like, Renji referred to as Zabimaru as, like, he's my comrade in arms, you know, before he went to the Soul Palace and learned about all this stuff. So I would imagine that's how a lot of the captains view them, and it's very different with Kenpachi and Yachiru. But anyway, yeah, that's all I have to really say about it, because like I said, we don't really have a lot of information about his Bankai yet, but I just wanted to make a video just chronicling everything, just getting my thoughts out there in general. What do you guys think, how it works, you know? Do you think, you know, Kenpachi just has to learn how to train with it? Do you think he could eventually learn how to use his Bankai, but he could be conscious while using it? What do you think, like, there's something more to Yachiru we haven't really figured out yet? I mean, I know there's still so much for Yachiru. Fucking discussion video in and itself right there. Just, you know, like how could she appear? You know, Zanpakuto spirits should only be visible to their Shinigami. How could she materialize before the rest of the Gotei 13? And now she decides to take the form only in Kenpachi. You see, it's a lot of exceptions are going along here. A lot of breaches in the rules are going on. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know if I'll be making another one of these if we get like a huge fucking bombshell. If it's just like a talk about, like, we find out the name, then I might just mention. I mean, I'll do the review, and I'll mention it in the review, of course. But I don't think there'll be a need for a whole new discussion video at that point. But, you know, I want to round out the Bankai series, so kind of have to throw this in here, and a few people have been asking for it, so I was like, why not? More views for me, right? I'm just kidding. I need you guys to watch me. I have a horrible, I have this horrible ego thing going on. I need people to love me. Please love me. Okay. See you guys. See you. Manatees. You see my manatee shirt? Yeah, I like the manatee shirt. Okay. Later, everybody. Signing out.